now I can unpin from here. Hello, Mike. Can you hear me? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you.
Hi, Jude. I said hi, Jude, but you weren't on yet.
Hi, Miss Robin.
Whoa, boy.
Oh, I love all of it.
Okay.
Well, I do, I mean, I like, yeah, I don't want to.
Check, check, 1, 2.
Maybe you should go back to it, then you won't even. You won't want to get scared.
I miss you.
Every 2 months, twice a month, I get back. Yeah, nobody else has that. They're not. They're not. They're so jealous. Really? I thought they were cute. That's what you told me.
Listen, that's what I said. I thought they were like magic. They're like double.
Okay. All right, I'd like to call the meeting to order and begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag
Of the United States of America. To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, for roll call this evening, we have Joy LaMarca is excused. We have Jay Grover, present. We have Nicole Novak, trustee. We have Jude Kuhn, district clerk. Dr. Brian Graham, superintendent. I'm Ashley Dreyer, president. Glenn Bobeck, trustee. With us virtually, we have Robin McCreary, trustee. We have Sue Marston, trustee. And we have Dr. Ruby Harris, assistant superintendent for business and finance. And is Cheryl with us as well? And we have Cheryl Cardone, assistant superintendent for people and personnel services. So if I could, announcements, if you could silence your cell phones, please. And just take note that there's an emergency exit directly behind me and directly in front of me. And if I could have an approval of the agenda for this evening, March 8th, 2021, please. A motion for that?
I'll motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 6-0. And if I could have an approval, a motion to approve the minutes from February 22nd, 2021, please.
I'll motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 6-0. We have some student ambassadors with us this evening. Brooke Christensen from the middle school is first up. Mr. Fitzpatrick, would you like to introduce Brooke?
Good evening. We're really pleased to have Brooke Christensen speak on behalf of the middle school tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Bufamonte.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brooke Christensen, and I am the president of Student Council at the middle school. Today, I'm going to tell you all about what is happening. We are doing our best to come up with event ideas that are fun and safe for everyone. We usually have a volleyball event for Valentine's Day, but this year, because we have to be safe, we did a sucker sale instead. Members of Student Council would sell suckers, and on the last days of school before Valentine's Day, they would be handed out. Students really liked this sale, and we are planning on doing it in the years to come because it was such a big hit. This month, we will be having a trivia event for March Madness, and how it works is students will be able to answer questions during their homeroom, and the winning homeroom from each grade will win a prize. We will also be making popcorn for the teachers as we reach 1 year from the start of the COVID-19 pandemic. We hope that soon the Buffalo weather will break and we can soon have a safe outdoor event. There are a few sports that are going on right now, and from what I have heard, everyone is very excited to be practicing again. JV DECA is doing a drive this Saturday called Pause for a Cause. You can find them at Island Pets and Feed from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. You can donate things like toys, collars, and leashes. Thank you all so very much for your time, and I hope you all have a safe and healthy March.
Thank you, Brooke. And now on to our Grand Island High School report with Jamie Lechner.
Good evening, everyone. As you know, my name is Jamie Lechner. I'm a senior at the high school, and I'm part of the Masterminds team and the Interact Club, and I've been a part of mock trial since my freshman year, and since I've been a junior, I've been captain as well. This year's been a hard one for students. I imagine it's been the same for teachers and administrators as well, which is why it's nice that we have our clubs to have as much normalcy as possible. Like many students, the seniors especially, I'm grateful I get to participate in the majority of my clubs. Students in general are glad that sports are back and starting soon. Everyone's very excited that we get that, along with our clubs, to have as much normalcy as possible. Interact has been able to meet and still work to help the community, which has been nice this year. There's been the food drive around Thanksgiving, the collection of toiletries, and then right now we have the Pop Tab drive going. Ms. Nowak has been great this year, especially with keeping in contact with everyone, coming with ideas for what we can do. Masterminds has been meeting and practicing most every Tuesday as usual. The varsity team is currently 6-2, and with two of our students being the top 5 scorers in the league. As usual, Ms. Jones has been great, keeping us up to date with everything and having everything ready so we can practice as normal. Now for mock trial, the club I'm actually here to speak for. So the general rundown of what the club is and what we do. Each year, the teams that compete are provided with a large packet, which includes the rules and regulations for the competition, list of objections, and a description of when to use them, summary of the case, and then there'll be 6 witnesses, and we get 6 affidavits. There'll be 3 witnesses for plaintiff, 3 for defense, and 3 of our team members will pick a witness, and 3 other team members will be lawyers, and they'll have to question their witnesses and the witnesses from the opposing team as well. Then out of the 3 lawyers, one must provide opening statements and another provide closing statements. The club itself is run by Mr. Ball, and we have attorney advisor Danielle Bruno, who is actually a graduate from the high school. Ms. Bruno will come to the meetings and make herself accessible for any questions we have, for advice on the trial, and then just stuff in general that can help us. We want to proceed with a career in law. Let's see, Mr. Ball and Ms. Bruno have been great this year. Mr. Ball recently went above and beyond because we're prepared for the trials. We've been meeting as a team for about 12 to 16 hours a week for the past couple of months, and he's been there for every one of them. He's been accessible if you have any questions, which has been very helpful in this unprecedented time. Mock trial is a good club for preparing for careers and beyond regular school stuff. In the club, we practice public speaking, writing, and thinking on our feet, because we can only use our script so much. We get hands-on trial experience for the aspiring lawyers, which is very helpful because we literally have to go through every procedure like it's a real trial. So I speak for myself and the team when I say that we're very happy that we got to compete this year, especially for the seniors, because they're last year. Which brings me to my next point. Currently at the high school, Ms. Boutte and Ms. Carey have finalized the design for the wall for the seniors and are finalizing the dates now for painting and wall signing. They'll get that information out to people soon. The last update about the high school right now is that we are halfway through the 3rd quarter, and everyone is working hard to finish the quarter in a positive way. Ms. Kretz Harvey and the administrators want to remind all the students to keep working hard and ask teachers help you need it. That's all I have to say unless somebody has any questions. So thank you for having me tonight to speak about mock trial and things that are going on at the high school.
Thank you, Jamie. Moving on to our correspondence recognition and good news, we have Mrs. Chamberlain here to talk about the good things that are happening with New York State DECA competition and our students at Grand Island who always make us so proud.
Thank you, Ashley. Thank you to the Grand Island School Board members, Dr. Graham, for allowing me to speak tonight on behalf of our outstanding DECA chapter. But first, kudos to John Ball, Jamie, and the mock trial team. He has his room is right across from mine. I watched them work endless hours online with Danielle Bruno. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And also, I can't forget Brooke Christensen. Thank you for plugging our pet drive this weekend at Island Pets and Feed. Please come on down and drop off anything you can to help out the Erie County SPCA. Okay, back to DECA. This year has been a challenge for sure. I wrote some notes here. Our club overcame many obstacles. As you know, we are a competitive business club. I'm on here all the time. because we're reliant on in-person competition. Our students do well in front of judges, and they compete at a high level in the region, in the state, and nationally. Our mainstays were always 20-page business reports or business plans and face-to-face presentation until this year. Our members had to adjust and relearn and overcome to present to judges on video far and wide. So our seniors, Emily Cohen, Allison Zerwanka, Thomas Fabiano, and Logan Cianco were inducted this year into the New York State DECA Honor Society. Congratulations to those seniors. And of our 21 competitors that went on to state competition this year, 11 were individual competitors, and the other 10 competitors were in teams of 2. So there were 5 teams. Tonight we have with us our individual competitors, Emily Cohen, who garnered 3 top 10 medals, John Paul Sobleski, who garnered 1 top 10 medal, and our team of Nate Cohen and Will Hoffmeyer, who brought in 2 top 10 medals. And I just want to ask each one of them, Emily, what did you compete in, and what did you think of your experience?
So hi, I'm Emily. I competed in the retail merchandising event, and this year was definitely a whole lot different than previous years. We didn't get to go on our state trip or our national trip, but I think DECA, especially at Grand Island, did a good job of preparing us for doing it online and giving us different tactics specifically for online, which is pretty applicable to how business is conducted for right now. But although we miss being in person, it was a really good experience to have something different this year to prepare us for 2020 and 2021 business conduction. So.
Thank you, Emily. JP Sobleski, give us your event and tell us a little bit about your competition.
Hello, I'm John Paul, and I did the quick serve restaurant management event for DECA. And I'm going to say I was not expecting to go as far as I did, especially with the circumstances being how they were, with like the whole pandemic and everything being limited and all virtual. I am really honored to represent Grand Island.
Oh, thank you, JP. You're amazing. Thank you. And the team of Will Hoffmeyer and Nate Cohen, who just missed it by this much to go on to nationals. Will and Nate, what did you compete in? And tell us a little bit about it.
So we competed in buying and merchandising, team decision making, and I think we did well. We did one place.
One place.
Qualifying, which is very frustrating, but I'm happy with how we did, and happy with how we did, considering how difficult it was to compete and how different it was to compete. You know, I can't really use as much of my prior DECA experience with this year because it's so different. You know, you're not talking to a judge, you're talking to a screen, and that, among other things, makes it very difficult. But I think we adapted pretty well as a chapter, especially Miss Chamberlain, bringing in some of the connections she has on meets and everything to help us through adapting to this different competition. I think it was well done, honestly.
Thank you, Will. Nate?
One of the big things about DECA is that you usually have one shot. You go in, you do your thing with the judges, and then you're done. But this year you could take multiple chances, and it really helped us iron what we wanted to say out and get a better grade.
Nice. Nice. You guys are amazing, absolutely amazing, and thank you for coming tonight. Justin Horvath and Evan Wallowitz, who are, by the way, playing basketball tonight with the team, moved on to virtual nationals, which is next month. They earned 3 medals and a 4th place in their event of sports and entertainment management, which, by the way, we do have a course at Grand Island, Sports and Entertainment Management, and Justin is currently in it. So that was really the highlight for him. Our local judges include former students Yelling Chen and Lauren Fonte-Muma, who actually judged at the state level. And proud as I am I'm humbled by the honest endeavors of all of our DECA competitors. And thank you to the Grand Island School Board and Dr. Graham for always, always, always supporting us, as well as our administrators. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any seniors with us that would like to share their plans for after high school? Does anyone have any plans set for?
Emily?
I love hearing about what our students go on to do after they leave us.
I just accepted my offer from UB. I will be a biochemistry major with hopes to go to dental school afterwards and a Spanish language minor.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Great. I remember hearing there were other seniors that joined us today. So any other seniors that would like to share? No? You guys are shy.
Jamie might.
Come on. Oh, is Jamie a senior? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what I'm doing just yet. I'm still waiting for a bunch of acceptance letters to come through. I've gotten 2 so far, though.
All right. But going into law, I assume, maybe?
Yeah, I plan to do undergraduate in political science, then hopefully go into law school.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for sharing. Congratulations to all of our DECA students and Mrs. Chamberlain, who does an amazing job with the coursework and the preparing and all the hours you spend after school. Definitely will pay off when you go to interview for colleges or for positions at companies in the future, and for jobs now, as you know, summer jobs come up and things like that. You can always tell when it's a DECA student because you are all very well spoken. So thank you very much for making our school so proud.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. Okay, that brings us to the public comment session, agenda items only. And we do have a sign up here, so I'll just read the little bit of information. At this time, public comments are invited from individuals who wish to address the Board of Education on any topic which is on the agenda. Residents who have previously signed up to speak will be recognized by the board president. When speaking, please identify yourself first. Speak clearly and loudly enough for everyone in the room to hear you. Speakers are requested to limit their remarks to no more than 3 minutes. Appoint a spokesperson if a concern is a group concern, and if necessary or desired, supplement your verbal presentations. Personal comments toward a member of the community, staff member, or Board of Education member will not be considered appropriate. At this time, we have Sherry Staffins to come up, please.
I watched the presentation on mental health from the last board meeting and wanted to add some ideas that I think may be helpful. As we know, mental health of students is at the forefront due to the pandemic. According to Mental Health America, the number of people looking for help with anxiety and depression has skyrocketed. From January to September 2020, there has been a 93% increase in anxiety screens from 2019. People who took the depression screens showed a 62% increase from 2019. And there was a 37% increase in people reporting thoughts of suicide on a daily basis. Rates of suicidal ideations are highest among youth. Not only are the numbers of youth searching for help with mental health increasing, but throughout the pandemic, youth ages 11 to 17 have been more likely than any other group to have moderate to severe symptoms of anxiety and depression. Of those struggling, 70% reported that one of the top 3 things contributing was loneliness or isolation. The grant for the 5-year plan is a great step forward, but the problem I see is that we don't have 5 years. We barely have 5 months. The crisis is now. I'm glad the first year starts with counselors, social workers, and psychologists to help further training, but with the nurses not brought in until year 3 is a large gap. I know as a school nurse, I work very closely with the guidance office because like hospitals, roughly 50% of the patients I see come in are due to mental health crisis, such as overdose, suicidal ideations, or anxiety. Unfortunately, the school is not much different. Students may come down for a medical problem, but it's easy to determine it is a mental health need. Recently, I had a student sent down for a medical issue, but quickly determined it was a mental health problem. I contacted the school social worker who was able to meet with the student, provide interventions to help the student work through their needs, return to class, and focus on academics. The next day, I received a call from the student's parents, who was incredibly thankful for our recognition of the problem and the interventions that we provided. Because the parent had been working with the student and was unsuccessful, but now the student is doing better. This is best case scenario. If not detected early, this would have not been the outcome. This is why I believe the nurses should be added to the first year of the 5-year plan with the social workers. Because early detection and intervention is key to creating positive outcomes for students. Administrators were in the 2nd year, and they are important, just like doctors in the hospitals. But the thing is, if a nurse does not know how to recognize signs and symptoms of hypoxia in my patient, it doesn't matter how good the doctor is, the patient's going to still get worse. Teachers are the administrator's eyes and ears in this case.
30 seconds.
If not trained on the signs and symptoms of mental health, it does not matter how great the administrators are, these kids will still struggle. I believe that we need a more all-encompassing plan for students to help with the transition into school and the feelings of loneliness they experience. A committee that would include mental health leaders in the district, such as counselors, social workers, and psychologists, teachers, and nurses would be helpful in this. Lastly, more education for students to help recognize signs in themselves of a decline in mental health. Just as doctors tell us to monitor for signs of disease and self-recognition is best. If I were to notice a growth or a lump, I want to see my doctor right away, not hide it. Students need to be aware of warning signs so they can seek help early and have a better chance at a positive outcome. With these interventions in place, not only can it help students socially, emotionally, but the byproduct would that they would do better academically, which is a win-win. Students who are not well mentally or physically are less likely to grow academically. So they would need the help, and I think that you guys can provide it. You have a platform to help many kids, and I hope that you can use it.
Thank you. Moving on to curriculum and instruction with, did you want to?
Yes.
Do you want me to read?
No, I'll.
Okay, go ahead.
So thank you to our board. Tonight, as some of you may already know, Governor Cuomo signed into law new legislation designating Juneteenth as an official public holiday in New York State. Juneteenth commemorates the end to slavery and celebrates Black and African American freedom and achievements while encouraging continuous self-development and respect for all cultures. Juneteenth is recognized on June 19th. This year, June 19th falls on a Saturday. For our school district, we are asking the board to allow us to amend our school calendar to designate June 18th as the holiday that we would recognize here at school this year. So at this time, I'd like to ask if there are any questions.
If I could get a motion to approve curriculum and instruction item A, please.
Motion.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor? Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 6-0.
I do have one more thing to add for curriculum. It's just updated information from the Board of Regents. The State Education Department has identified 4 Regents exams to be administered in June. If the United States Department of Education does not approve New York's request for a waiver from federal testing requirements, these tests will be given in June. The exams are Algebra 1, English Language Arts, Living Environment, and Earth Science. These, the Board of Regents will be meeting once more on March 15th to finalize their regulatory suggestions and requirements for administering those tests. So we look forward to more information on March 15th. Just so the board knows, the federal government requires that students be assessed in 3 subject areas, English Language Arts, Math, and Science, at least once in high school. The State Education Department will propose to cancel 6 Regents exams that are not federally required, and those exams are Algebra 2, Geometry, Chemistry, Physics, Global History and Geography, and United States History and Government. And that was according to a memo we received last week from the State Education Department. The Board of Regents also will consider proposals that would remove Regents exams from state's graduation requirements this year, and they're looking at canceling all August Regents exams this year as well. To that end, we're still waiting to hear from the State Education Department or the Board of Regents how they plan or what suggestions they have for districts to administer the grades 3 through 8 New York State assessments. Unfortunately, we do not have any information at this time with respect to those assessments.
Frank, is state have given any reasoning why they are canceling tests this year?
Well, the only reason that I've heard is about equity and the differences in, students having access to in-person or remote instruction in different parts of the state.
So, I'm not quite sure I understand it. Aren't all school districts supposed to be giving equal education to their students this year?
Yeah, so, I think that probably is why the federal government is saying that we should give at least those base exams. You're welcome. So I'll continue to keep the board and our community up to date with respect to any new information we get on the Regents exams as well as the New York State assessments for grades 3 through 8. Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to personnel instructional, if I could have a motion to approve PI 1 through PI 3, please.
Make a motion.
Oh, sorry.
All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 6-0. And moving on to personnel non-instructional, if I could have a motion to approve PNI 1 through PNI 3, please.
I will make a motion.
And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 6-0. All right, that brings us to the finance section. Did you want to do the presentation first or do the run through?
Sure, Ruby. Just before we go to finance, I do want to thank those individuals on our instructional personnel agenda who are now choosing a new journey toward retirement. Their absence from our district next year is not just a big loss to us, but it's a big loss for our community. So we want to wish everybody on our agenda tonight who's choosing to retire all the best, and we look forward to a special recognition, Jude, I think, in June, right? Yeah, so we'll welcome everybody back and provide a lot of recognition, well-deserved for our retirees.
Definitely well deserved. June 7th marks the date to celebrate, and congratulations to our retirees. Great.
Good. And then Ruby, or for the board, do we want to start with the presentation on budget and then go through any other action items, or do we want to go through the action items and then?
Can we do the action items? It's not a lot, and one of them, I have somebody here if you have questions, so I just don't want them to have to stay 30 or 40 minutes through the presentation. Maybe it'll be shorter. Is that okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So the first action item on tonight's agenda is obsolete buses. There are 2 buses that would be sold through Auctions International, so we're asking the board for action on that. The next action item is the capital improvement project. It is the school bus loop for that traffic control area. You will see that the site work and the electrical work total about $192,041. I do have Vaughn here if you have any questions. Vaughn is from Campus Construction. So if you have any questions on any of the documentation that was provided. And then I have budget transfers that are over 15,000, and that also deals with the capital area. And that is for the concession stand. And please just to note that B item is out of H fund. It is not a general fund expenditure as we see those numbers come in. So are there any questions? And if not, I'm just asking for action on those 3.
Just real quick on the loop, the traffic loop. Is that for both ends to be gated or just one?
That's this is Vaughn with Campus. Yeah, that's for both ends. Okay. So that's for that's for the entrance side, and then again over at the exit.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Great. Any other questions? If we could have a motion to approve finance A through C, please.
I'll motion.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 6-0.
Good. And Ruby, do we want to do budget and then food service, or food service and budget?
However you want to do it, Brian. However you would like. Is it easier to do budget first?
Maybe we do food service first because on our budget presentation, we're asking the board to consider transferring some money to that account.
Okay. I'm going to pull it up and then I have it in front of me as well. And just let me know that you can see it properly. Can you see the whole presentation?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. So I am doing this presentation tonight on behalf of Patrick Smith, who welcomed a new baby today. So I told him I would do this because, you know, I didn't want him to have to leave the hospital. So I'm going to go through this. If there are any questions, just speak them because I cannot see you. So really, Patrick took some time to give a background. I'm just going to highlight a couple of things. On Monday, March 16th, we found out that school was closing. Well, we found that out on Sunday, but it began on March 16th. We met with the staff to come up with a plan. We did meal pickups for the entire month of March. It was every single day. Thereafter, we switched to a Monday, Wednesday, Friday pickup. And due to the restrictions given during the environment of COVID, food service went from 23 staff members down to 14 for the remainder of the school year. So we have 14 staff members and volunteers, which really assisted us being able to comply with the requirements. Then as we continue on from March 18th through the remainder of June, we, thanks to Dr. Graham and his Google form usage, we're able to send out text messages for parents to fill out their interest in meal delivery. We actually delivered to over 100 homes daily. There was a lot of communication and work with the transportation department for the planning of routes and how the meals were going to be delivered, as well as kitchen staff, bus drivers, and volunteers bringing coolers to make sure that the items could be kept to the proper temp in such short notice. So you'll see that on average, about 14,000 meals were served a month. And also what occurred was food service was required, or food was required to be provided during spring recess, and Memorial Day, which are normally days that these staff members would be off. And all meals were free for all Grand Island residents, 18 years old and younger. This provides you with a monthly meal breakdown. I won't go through this too much. I think it's important to note, though, that the pickup from Huth that really occurred and just during the month of March moved over to Sidway. We actually did not use Huth as a pickup site location. So this was how the state suggested we claim the meals, and that's how we did it. Okay, so during the summer, well, we're actually right before summer started, one of the requirements was the school district had to provide meals through the summer months or have an option close by that provided meals during the summer months. So this was the first time that Grand Island School District served meals over the summer. And prior to that, you'd have to apply for a waiver. We did have a lot of waivers and things we had to go through, and it was a fun process with the state. But during the summertime, we had one cook/manager, 4 food service helpers, and then we had the food service director. You will see here that the meals were served from July 14th through August 20th, and it was done on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it had the same mandate of anyone up to the age of 18 years old. This gives you a breakdown of what occurred in July and August. So a total of 4,410 meals were served during that time. They did a really fabulous job. And then going into this school year, originally it was announced that we were going to be giving out meals free, as we had to do during the beginning of COVID, up until December 31st. That was extended to run the entire 2021 school year. Right now, pickups are Tuesdays and Wednesdays, and families are just receiving multiple meals for the week. We accommodate when we have a school actually shut down. We have done that, accommodate at other locations. So meal pickups do not stop. And there's a 2-hour window for parents to pick up these meals. So they have done a lot to just try to meet the needs of everyone. And you'll see some things here that we've gotten really good feedback. There's been adjustments to meal pickup times. They've moved menus. Some people are just stopping and dropping things off at people's homes if they know they weren't able to access it. So everybody is working collectively to make something that seemed impossible really work. Okay, just if you are not aware, Just for Kids picks up breakfast and lunch from Kegabine on a weekly basis. St. Timothy's is picking up breakfast weekly from Kegabine. Huth Road's Kitchen for the Capital Project, he says complete. I would say I'm still going back and forth a little bit, but the kitchen is beautiful. We will make sure that you are updated with some pictures as well. Patrick and his team have been working collectively with IT to create an electronic application, which I think is going to help a lot with getting our application return up. This goes into the strategic goals, which tie into the request that you will see in the budget presentation for the transfer to food service. But some of the things that I just wanted to point out is them being innovative, them continuing to align with state programs for funding and other opportunities, and continue and adopt new practices. Clearly, I think we see that daily as they are constantly developing new ways to meet the mandates as they change. This feeds into the actual snippet or illustration of our food service plan. So that is here for you to see the different areas. And then this is the staffing changes that have happened. I know we've talked about this before, but we just want to kind of show how we went from 111.25 staff hours in 1819 to 96.25 staff hours in 1920, what that hour change looked like per building. And we continue to look at these areas and work with the union to see if there's any reductions we can do without actual staff load, losing staff. This next slide is a financial snapshot, which I'm assuming is small for you guys, but it should be accessible right through board docs. This does show our deficit, and that's really why we're asking for the increase for the transfer to food service. I'm going to go to the next slide because I want to just get into this a little bit. So one of the updates I wanted to provide is we had a health insurance committee meeting maybe a week ago, maybe 2 at the most, in which we were updated on where we stand with our self-funded plan. The area of food service is performing very well. As you can see here, the total spend in that lump or group was only $9,500. So if the year continues the way it has been, I do not believe that we will have to do this $100,000 transfer as we have done in past school years, but I will definitely update the board a little bit more as the year closes out. This provides also our year 3 financial plan. which is just our review of the prior year, continue implementing different areas. We have put some things on pause. It's been really hard to do some professional development, given the fact that everything is not virtually given, and the time constraints of staff right now. But we will continue to review that area. And our hope always is that we can become better at the revenue and expenses. I do want to note, though, COVID has made it extremely hard. You receive your meal reimbursement that is allotted through the federal and the state, but you're not really bringing in any revenue besides a la carte and snacks. And given the amount of kids that are actually in school is half, it makes it even more difficult. That's just a picture. So as we close out this year, as we near the end of the year and we close it out, more information will be given, but I don't think it's going to be a year that's in favor for us, even though we have just really followed all of the requirements and guidelines. The last couple of slides are really thank yous. Patrick has not had a full platform like this to say thank yous. So he wanted to thank all of his volunteers. You will see on each one of these slides the list, but just on behalf of the food service department, he wanted to acknowledge them and express gratitude and appreciation for all that was contributed during the last year, from deliveries to the transportation department, all the bus drivers and bus aides who not only did they help on the meal component deliveries, but they also delivered packets and Chromebooks. So he wants to say thank you, and a huge thanks to his staff who literally it seems like they have worked with no days off, just in the planning and pushing this out. So that is all I have. If anybody has any questions.
Do we still have a full-time person over at St. Stephen's? Do we still have a full-time employee working?
She is at St. Stephen's. I think her name is Cheryl, is at St. Stephen's. And also remember that St. Stephen's right now has the same requirements we do when it comes to serving kids and not charging. So I actually think their numbers of meals have increased based on the fact that kids eat for free. I can collect more information if you would like that, just to see kind of like where they stand in reference to the number of meals. But we do have a person there.
That answered my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Ruby, I'm told that Patrick and his wife had a baby girl today.
Yes.
Isla Rose.
She's so cute. She is so cute.
Congratulations, Pat. I just want to add, Ruby did a nice job in summarizing those slides. Pat Smith and Ruby Harris and Cheryl Cardone were in my office on Sunday, March 15th, 2020. And we were there because we were expecting polling cars to announce that there were cases of positive cases in Erie County. And after you made that announcement, Pat got right to work on Sunday, March 15th, to put together a plan, and we were mobilized on March 18th. So it was pretty remarkable. Delivering, food to families, and also having sites where families could come and pick up food, and that just never ended. It just kept going and going. So that's a testament to Pat and his team, and they have been truly outstanding.
Yes, thank you. Anyone have any questions? All right, I think we're ready for the budget.
All right.
Presentation then.
Ruby, you're the captain. You have the con.
Yes. Present it. Hold on one second. I will say that Google needs to come up with a way that I can see all of it. I do not like that I cannot see people. It's so weird. I feel like I'm talking to myself. Okay, can you see the presentation?
Yes, it's starting to load now. Thank you. So as our board knows, we talk about our mission all the time. You know, the mission of our school district is really to inspire all students to achieve their highest potential while fostering academic excellence, personal growth, and social responsibility. Every year we talk about our budget goals, and they're developing a long-term sustainable budget designed to provide the best diversified education program for all of our students. I know this week, Ruby, you met with Dr. Rick Timms on actually building a long-term financial plan as well. So that matches very nicely to our budget goals. Of course, we do all that we can to retain all community mandated student programs and activities, and we're always vigilant in doing everything we can to protect our fund balance. Today we had a member from the community talk about our mental health plan, as you can see in our 5-year strategic plan goals, to steward the district toward improved services and support that foster wellness and behavioral health of students is one of our number one goals in the 5-year strategic plan. Other goals is improving the work of our district stakeholders and the connectedness we have to Grand Island and the Western New York community. Another goal is to make inter-building communication and practices as seamless as possible. Of course, we're always striving to foster a level of academic achievement emblematic of a championship school district. One of our goals is to ensure the completion of all of our curriculum maps while fostering expansion of STEAM curriculum, and to review, revise, and expand our benchmark assessments as appropriate throughout the district. Ruby, can you just talk a little bit about the budget development process and our meeting dates?
Sure. As usual, November through January, we hold one-on-one meetings, as well as building admin meetings and department head meetings to go through the budget process. As you know, every request is then brought forward to the board. In January, we really talk about enrollment projections as well as the governor's executive budget. And then in February, we have our prioritization meeting with the administrators, and then we bring that to the Board of Education for our first budget input. And now we are in March and doing our second budget meeting.
Jude, have you heard any information at the state level with respect to the budget vote or the board election vote? Are we still focused on May 18th, as far as you know?
Yes.
Excellent. So throughout these meeting dates, of course, we'll come back together again on April 12th to review and try to finalize our plans in building this budget. Hopefully at that time, Ruby, we will know from our governor if the state has finalized the state's budget, and perhaps we'll even know a little bit more information about the new federal dollars that could be coming to New York State to support public schools and other initiatives. So hopefully all that information will crystallize by April 12th for us. If not, we still have until April 20th to adopt the budget, and then a public hearing on the 10th, and then the vote on the 18th. Okay. So tonight, of course, we're going to hear from Cheryl Cardone talking about pupil personnel services and go through the budget as we've done in the past. So we're going to turn it over to Cheryl.
All right, Ruby, you have the slides?
Yes, can you see them?
So just to recap what pupil personnel services overseas, I didn't add this year, but COVID coordinator has served to be my number one priority, I think, this year. So we can add that to the list as well, but just overview of what it does cover. Ruby, you can go to the next one. So the first one I wanted to talk about is a behavioral specialist. Back when I came to Grand Island, probably about, 12 years ago, there were behavioral specialists in the district, and it was probably hovering around a contractual amount of about $300,000. Over time, our school psychologists, as well as our teachers, have really gotten involved and taken over the behavioral consultation that we contracted out with for so long. There is some one-to-one direct service, and there is some behavioral consultation for our students that have significant behavioral disabilities, but we have really wheedled that portion of the budget down to probably about $150,000 at this time, maybe a little bit less. What I'm looking for, or what I'm recommending, is that we hire our own, kind of like we've hired our own ENL teacher, we hired our own hearing teacher, and I believe the savings when I went over it with Ruby would be approximately $75,000 if we actually hired our own behavioral specialist to work with the district K-12. We will have to use some consultation services, especially for that one-to-one direct ABA service that we utilize. But again, we are still looking at each and every child. You know, if we bring a specialist into district, they'll be able to help us right size those services as well. Ruby, is that correct in the savings amount?
Yes, it's on the next slide too.
Okay. And then over the past few years, we have brought special ed summer school back to district. I believe 2 years ago, we brought back 6 through 12. Last year, even though it was completely online, we held our summer school 2 through 12 in district. And this year, I'm asking for K to 12 to come back to district. And that would include not only K to 12 programming, but everything that goes along with it. Speech, our See It services, which is our individualized services, you know, as well as our self-contained 611, 811, and 1211 K to 12, instead of using BOCES. And I'm going to let Ruby talk about how summer school really doesn't affect the general fund, but it actually comes out of an F fund because the F fund, actually, we can claim a higher rate of aid. So Ruby, if you could do that, please, I'd appreciate it.
Not a problem. So if you are unaware, we have really just went through BOCES for a great length of time to provide summer school, extended school year learning for our special education students. As Cheryl has stated, at first it was the high school, middle high school area. Once we were able to work with the state to receive some numbers as well as approval to run the programs, we decided we were going to do grades 2 through 5, and now the request is K through 12. K through 12. So the reason why this makes sense, not only for our students to be serviced by our own wonderful teachers and service providers, is also the cost. We receive 80% of aid back for our special ed summer school program that is out of an F fund. So the only thing that you really see on the general fund side is you see a transfer to special, and that amount, I believe, is about $40,000, and it's set there each year. One thing I think is important to identify is even if you spend more, than $40,000 and that's what needs to be transferred, the auditors will make you move that money. You can't owe the special fund. So this just allows us to better align financially. That $40,000 should be sufficient as it's already been budgeted, as well as provide in-house services with people the students know and have built relationship with, and service providers as well. Does that sum it up well, Cheryl?
Yep, thank you very much. And as always, and I think Dr. Graham said this at the beginning, you know, when we are looking at increasing services, bringing services back to district, or looking at a full-time equivalent position, we are always referring back to the district strategic plan goals. And, you know, once again, my area is looking at the wellness and behavioral health of the students, and then also academic achievement, because it really is a great thing to have all of our kids back in district going to summer school instead of having them at BOCES. Not that BOCES doesn't do a wonderful job, but it's nice for them to be here on Grand Island with mostly Grand Island teachers, and teacher aides, servicing their needs here.
Cheryl, when do you think state ed will approve the site license request for the other grade levels for having summer school here on campus? Do we apply for a site license then for additional grades?
We have, yes, we have a site license to do all of the related services. We have the site license to do our self-contained program, our See It program. And we will just, right now we have it 2 through 12. We will just extend it K1, which is just a check mark box and it won't take any time whatsoever.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep.
Cheryl, can I just also ask, are we providing transportation for the summer or do the parents have to bring their kids in?
Except for last year, Nicole, because of COVID, and it was all online, so we didn't need transportation. We do provide transportation. It's something that I've already talked to Teresa about. And again, Teresa was excited too, because it's in district instead of going off of the island.
And we receive, just so you're aware, the transportation component of special ed summer school is also aided and funded through F-Fund. So we do receive aid on that, and it is an F-Fund expense during that time.
Ruby, this might be a good segue into reminding the board on how ASBO and superintendents are advocating to stop the state from compiling different expense-based aids into one category, because I think you just highlighted something perfectly. It was well said. The special education transportation aid that we get is significant, and if the governor lumps all these expense-based aids into one category, we may not see the dollars as clearly as we see them now coming back to the district. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yes, that's the simplest way of putting it.
So I know we fought hard last year and we got that stopped, but it's a strategy that the state is trying to do again. So we want to continue our advocacy to stop that.
Correct. As well as the component that given the way the formula is set up right now, and the questions behind it is, if it happened, are you receiving that aid as it is, that number that's given, knowing that every number on that state aid run changes except for foundation aid and UPK? I promise if I ran a report in 4 months that every single one of those numbers would be different. So that's the other concern, right? Are those numbers factual? Like, are you going to give that, or are you going to adjust and say, well, this is where we feel you should be, and then freeze us there? I don't think it's going to get far, but it is something that he continues to push for.
Ruby, does that mean that, you say that they're aidable, which is always where we've understood things to be, right? So we're aided, we get state aid based upon our transportation expense.
Yes.
And it goes back to the prior year, right? Is that correct so far?
We get, yes, yep.
So we get aid next year for our transportation expenses this year, right?
Yes.
In the past. So when they lump it together, right? You can lump it together however you want. I don't care how you lump it together as long as we still get the same amount of aid, right? So are you saying that when they lump it together that we're not going to necessarily get the same reimbursement because we just don't know, or?
I'm saying it's twofold, right? If they lump it together, does the law say it has to be the number in the governor's run? Because right now their numbers are driven off of expense-driven areas. So if my expense, when I file, because nobody has said to me, hey, Ruby, you don't have to do reporting for those areas. And that the aid is driven by the ST3 completion. So when the ST3 is complete, if I don't spend all of that in transportation, is that lumped number going to go down? And language is everything. We see it time and time again. especially things with the governor. But that's the first area. And then the second concern is you're dealing with 2 crazy school years. Last year, I did not spend everything that I usually would spend in the area of transportation due to COVID, as well as now. I don't have field trips going on. We don't have sports that performed at the same level and degree that they did before. And we have people's hours that shifted because of the Wednesday. So if I'm frozen at where he currently says I am, what does that look like 2 and 3 years from now?
Thank you, Ruby.
Okay. I can't see anybody. So this is just a recap from the executive run. The reason why I put this slide in again is I know that there have been a lot of articles. I swear every time Dr. Graham and I get an email that says we're getting federal money, I say, is this new money or old money? And sometimes we get them confused. But in the one thing I want to mention, as we see the articles about this federal relief and how much money districts are getting, one of the things to take note is the money, a huge chunk of the money has already been accounted for in the governor's executive run. He had a adjustment, which he cut school state aid, and then he backfilled it with the federal dollars. I do know there is some back and forth in, is this allowed to happen? How is his final budget going to look? But as of right now, that is what occurred. So those federal dollars have already been accounted for thus far. Hopefully that changes, but that's the way the information stands to date. And another thing, just so the board and the community is aware, is the 20% withholding that they did from the June aid payments has started to flow in. So some of those funds are actually being released and received, like check in hand and now in bank. But that's just to update you so you know those monies are now coming in. Any questions? Go ahead.
Can I ask a question a different way? Because you hear about federal monies going to schools, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think when you see that, you could interpret that as schools are getting more monies than they would typically get from the government's state, federal, to fund activities, right?
Right.
So that arguably, if that's the case, they should be able to do things that they haven't done in the past. My interpretation of that is that that's probably not the case. That if between state and federal dollars, we'll probably get, as much as we typically get, or maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, just to sustain what we've typically had. It's not like those dollars are going to allow us to do something unique and special that we haven't done in the past. Is that
That's correct.
correct interpretation? Okay.
That is correct. On this slide, you'll see the word supplement versus supplant. Usually what occurs with federal funds is you have to supplement, meaning you have to add to it. You can't cut another area and backfill it with federal money. But that is what has occurred with the federal funds that have on paper. That's the way it's been presented in the executive run. So if the federal, based on the calculation, Grand Island is slotted 2.7 million, it's not 2.7 million new dollars. It's a reduction in state aid by 2.7 million, and then it's pushed back in with federal funding. And I'm going to be very honest, the federal funding thus far from March, and we did the application process to receive those funds in November. I've asked business officials every meeting we have, has anybody received their federal funds yet? And it's a no. So I don't look forward to whatever this looks like. Hopefully it's a little bit better than what's happening right now, but nobody has received those funds yet. Okay.
Thank you.
This is the same information you saw at the last board meeting. Nothing has changed in reference to the state aid proposal. You'll see the highlights, which are the the service aid categories that they propose to lump together. And then you will also see on here the pandemic adjustment. You'll see that as a minus, and then the federal CARES restoration, and that's the add back, and that's the conversation we were just discussing. Nothing has really changed on this slide either in the area of revenue. You will see the real property tax levy is at 3.21%. The last time you saw this, it was a little bit higher than that. We did receive our BOCES exclusion information, so I made that correction, and I'll discuss it a little bit more in some future slides. And right now, from my knowledge, the sales tax component is still in jeopardy of being reduced for the current school year and the next school year. It is about 40,000, which doesn't seem like a lot, but every dollar counts, especially right now. So it is something that we will be pushing to make sure doesn't happen. These are our current budget assumptions. This gives you the salary increase where it currently stands. You'll see here that we have 5 retirements assumed. You will see the TRS and ERS increase. An item that is on here now that was 0 initially was the retirement benefit increase. As we know, as people retire, there is a benefit written contractually if they are eligible. So that has been taken into consideration. You have the healthcare increase, which I think is about 3%. I think it's on the next slide. And the debt service increase, which is due to our capital project that we will be finishing up and the debt obligation for that. So this just gives you a little bit of a different picture. It allows you to see some of the percentages differences. You'll see salaries is about 1.68%. That takes into consideration those retirements. You'll see health insurance here, all of the different information we went through. 2 areas that are large and are being reviewed is BOCES, as you are or should remember, hopefully. BOCES is beginning their capital project, and we have a component as a component district that has to be paid. So that has been taken into consideration here, and debt service is really our debt obligation. So overall, the percent difference is 5.21%. This provides a deeper dive into each area, whether that is overarching human resource or school buildings. Outside of personnel and BOCES, you don't see much activity besides moving things from one area to another. We did do a COVID supplies of 25,000, and that's just to account for some of the things that we believe will still be expenses we need to budget for next year. COVID's not miraculously just going to disappear, so we did want to leave some funds there. And then we go into the debt service area, which really shows you the band premium and the band interest and what's happening in capital. When you go down to the bottom, you will see state aid, you see the tax levy, and you will see other revenue. And that gives you the total revenue increase. So the budget gap is $1.5 million currently. We will continue to work collectively. One of the big areas is really going through BOCES and seeing what our percentage of aid is in different things and making reductions as necessary. You ready, Dr. Graham?
Yes, thank you. So these slides really haven't changed since the last time we presented, but just as a summary, this slide on page 24 just shows last year's total enrollment at 2,815. And slide 25 shows that we were 73 fewer students this year. Some maybe because of COVID chose homeschooling or chose to move altogether or enroll in a different school. So this is right now, as of the slide, 2,742 students. On page 26, you're going to see that this kind of breaks it down from grades K through 5, where students may have moved out of the district or gone to homeschooling or moved to St. Stephen's or other non-public schools. And then this just shows, I think the board is well aware, because we've had several years of smaller enrollment in kindergarten and elementary schools. In the future, it's going to start impacting our secondary schools. Right now, we're predicting, or we have about 940 or so students in the high school. Next year, a smaller number of 918, and then a big drop to 864 or 887, and then 842 in future years. This just takes into account students that are in our school and in our younger grades. For page 28, once again, take a look at middle school enrollment from 2016-17, 700 students, and then this year at 651, projecting 636 next year, and then 617 in the 2022-23 year, and dropping below 600 in the 2023-2024 school year. On page 29, this shows you just Huth and Kegabyne combined, ranging from 840 and to 2019, 851, and then a drop this year to 767 combined, 751 projected for next year, 774 and 783 in 23-24 school year. Current elementary class size ratios really seem to fall within the guidelines that we work very hard to manage. At Sidway, we're looking at class sizes of 20 and 19 respectively for kindergarten and first grade. And then Huth, class sizes of 18, 21, 22, and 23 for grades 2 through 5. And for Kegabyne, class sizes of 22, 22, 20, and 18 at 5th grade. For page 31, current class size ratios, of course, taken into the aggregate, you're looking, Sidway just at 20, Huth at 21, and Kegabyne at 20 on the averages. And then overall, total students K through 5 with 54 classroom teachers at an average class size of 20 for our district. On page 32, this is how we try to predict how many students may enroll in kindergarten next year. As you can see, this keeps track of births attributed to Grand Island 5 years ago. And so the prediction here is that 220 students will enroll in kindergarten in September. And so that's what we're going to plan for as we look at projected class sizes on page 33. So you'll see the 220 number under Sidway, and that's for kindergarten, and we're looking to have 11 classroom teachers take care of those kids to keep the class sizes at 20. This year there are 10 classroom teachers in kindergarten. Also, because our kindergarten students will move on to first grade, maintaining 10 first grade teachers keep class sizes at 20 for the first graders. So you'll see an increase of 1 teacher at Sidway. Huth will maintain, I think this year they have 17 teachers, so they're going to go up by 1, while Kegabyne will go down by 1. So you'll see for Huth, projected class sizes at 2nd grade of 24, but 3rd grade 18, 4th grade 21, and 5th grade 22. All taken care of by the 18 teachers. Again, there's 17 there now. So going to 18, the average class sizes will be 21 or 22. And then for Kegabyne, you'll see that 2nd grade projected with 4 teachers, class sizes of 20, class sizes of 22 at 3rd grade, class sizes of 22 at 4th grade, and class size of 20 at 5th grade, while also reducing a teacher from 17 to 16 in that building. And then on page 34, you'll see currently there are 242 6th graders 196 seventh graders, and 213 eighth graders, for a total of 651. In sixth grade, currently, we have 10 classroom teachers taking care of those 242 kids. So that gives you a class size of about 24. Then on slide 35, we're projecting to see, instead of 242 sixth graders, 192. So we think we can reduce from 10 to 8 to take care of the 192 sixth grade students and still maintain the class average class size of 24. And that allows us to move some elementary teachers around to take care of the need at Sidway and take care of the need at Huth. As was shared earlier, we have some people who've submitted their intent to retire, 3 teachers, 1 special education teacher, 1 music teacher, and 1 physical education teacher. And then on slide 37, we have 2 administrators, an elementary principal and a secondary assistant principal. It's our goal to replace all of those who have retired. Any questions about enrollment? All right. So Ruby always has been including on slide 39 just a peek at the prior year requests. So that is there for the board just to recall the things that were asked for last year and how the district either took care of things internally or move things around using different strategies to take care of those needs. And then on slide 40, you'll see that from the last time we met, there were a lot of asks, and those asks were listed under the column 2021, 2022. And now you'll see that things are moved to 2022 and beyond, and some things are still remaining in the column 2021, 2022. So you'll see that the high school request for a full-time business teacher, a full-time special education teacher, and a part-time ELA teacher is still there. It's under review, but it's still listed there for our consideration at this time. Middle school, the requests to take care of art, technology, and phys ed have shifted to the future, and we think that those requests can be taken care of with internal coverage between the high school and the middle school. You'll see that the web advisor is still on here for our consideration, the board's consideration. Web is an excellent program where 8th graders are mentoring 6th graders, and Mr. Fitzpatrick is asking to be able to compensate the web advisors through that stipend. Items for Sidway and Kegabine have been moved to the future for future considerations. The Huth asked for, last time you saw this, it was 2 second grade teachers. Now it's been reduced to 1 with internal coverage, so there's no cost for that request. Still here for our consideration is, instead of paying BOCES to provide a community relations specialist, take those dollars and hire our own part-time community relations specialist. So that's on here for our consideration. The behavior therapist that Cheryl Cardone talked about is here, and it's still listed as under review. An increase from $4,000 to $6,000, or an increase of $2,000 for the Eagle Island stipend and expenses is still on here for our review. Taking dollars to create 1 assistant superintendent of administrative services position. It would be eliminating the current part-time human resources position and combining those dollars into 1 position that would cover human resources, and curriculum instruction and assessment is on here for consideration. Also on here for consideration is adding a teacher on special assignment to the curriculum department. And also on here for consideration is something new, which we think is very important, is providing a summer school program for elementary age students, grades K through 5. We would not be able to provide transportation for that program, but currently, as we've penciled and sketched this out, we would offer 100 seats 4 days a week at Sidway for 4 weeks, 100 seats for Huth, and 100 seats for Kegabine. And that program would run 4 weeks 4 days a week to provide English language arts and math direct instruction in person at those school buildings for a cost of $50,000 for the board's consideration. I'll just stop there to see if there are any questions so far.
I have one quick question.
Sure.
So when we're looking at the TOSA for the curriculum department, I'm assuming if we don't add the assistant superintendent position that's listed above, will we still be considering a TOSA, or will that go hand in hand?
Yep, everything is still under consideration. But yeah, if the district did not create the assistant superintendent position, we would still try to have some teacher and special assignment support for that department.
And so the TOSA, interesting. And who would the TOSA report to? I mean, I guess it's still under review. If it continues, I'll have more questions.
Sure, yeah. I think it would be great to be able to create that position, and then the TOSA would report to that assistant superintendent.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Going to page 41, there are requests that have been moved to the future and some still remain. There are some really nice tools for our teachers through News, ELA, and Desmos. I had an opportunity to watch a high school teacher use Desmos today in her geometry class, and I thought it was a really good use of the teacher and the students' time, spending time in that piece of software. You can see that some things have been moved to future, like I said, and some things are still under review, such as hiring a buildings and grounds laborer, 1 part-time cleaner. I think the last time we saw it said 3. Continuing with a small capital outlay project like we've done in the past, using dollars to replace the smart boards. The old-fashioned smart boards still exist in some classrooms, and replacing those with the touch TV technology that is used mostly across the district. Adding a component to Infinite Campus that would make it a little bit more seamless for Infinite Campus and food service to communicate would help the food department, or our food and nutrition department, with that added piece or module for Infinite Campus. As always, we're upgrading security cameras. We did have an issue in one of our schools where we were very pleased to see how the new security cameras worked, and we were able to assist law enforcement in apprehending a particular person for something that happened on one of our campuses. So we would like to continue building our schools with better security cameras. Ruby, I see it says BOCE's E-Ray project. It's still under review. I don't know if you have any update for that.
Robin and I actually just spoke after we sent this out on Friday, and we believe that we're going to push that to a future year because the amount of money that would even need to be taken into consideration for it is pretty hefty. I can provide an update in reference to the E-rate project, but it'll be after the budget season. So next meeting, you will see that in the other column for future year consideration.
Thank you. Also on here, the request to add dollars for health insurance has been moved to the future for further review. The request to increase the number of school resource officers has been moved to the following year for future review. The transfer to food service remains, and modified soccer still remains for the board's consideration. Any questions about those items? Well, thank you very much. And you can see that the request of new items is around $744,000.
That request is now cut in half from the original request, which I believe was 1.4 million. Just so you know.
Yes. Would you like to talk about the transportation proposition?
Sure. So these are the current requests from Transportation and Buildings and Grounds. You'll see on here the 65 passenger buses, the 29 passenger bus, and there is a request for the Chevy truck Suburban. The next meeting, I can actually share some pictures of the underbelly of the Chevy and how it's beyond repair in some ways. So that is why it is on here. And then you see the F-350 on here and a wagon. Usually Buildings and Grounds is asking to replace 2 F-350s. But given the accident that happened, I want to say it was, yes, 2 years ago, the accident that occurred with a van, this was the way he put through the request because we really needed that vehicle. So this is about a $25,000 increase, and it's 3.6%. Two things that I always think are important to note is this would be through a ban, so that payment is spread out over 5 years. And you do receive transportation aid on that as well. And this does not impact the budget until the following school year. So you're looking at a 22-23 budget cycle impact. Any questions? So this just gives you a nice recap of all the things that myself and Dr. Graham have spoken about tonight. The things to take note of is the bottom area of where we stand right now with total expenses, which is 67.8 million. You will see what is anticipated tax levy is what we need to cover that gap without request. And then you will see the tax levy maximum increase, which is 36.2 million. So that is where we get the without request difference, which was the 1.5 I spoke of earlier, and then with the request, which was the 744,000, that brings us to 2.26 million. So we still have a bit of work to do for sure. But we will continue to chip away, or chunk away, really, because we're not shipping at this point, and provide an update at the next budget presentation meeting. Any questions on this slide?
Ruby, I don't know if this is now or later, but I don't want to talk about town board matters because I don't think that's part of what we should be doing. But can you explain to me how the assessment that the town board is doing might affect the tax rate that we will have?
Yes. I actually have the tax rate is in about 3 slides. So can I do it then?
Yes.
Okay. So this just provides a recap of information as well as fund balance. Every year this time in March, it's required that we make sure that the fund balance information is public and available. So this provides an update on where we stand with different reserve funds and what that means for the end of the year. Now, I always find it interesting because they want to know your balance as of March 31st. Your balance doesn't usually change between June and March. Until your auditors come in and review the books and help you shift some things around, which happens far later than June. Then you'll have an update of where you stood as of June 30th. But this does provide some information. The capital reserve will be utilized for our current project. We are using the debt service reserve to pay down on that actual bond interest, and then freeing up funds to flow into our area to cover capital project expenses. You have the employee benefit accrued liability, which goes towards retired employee benefits if needed. You have ERS and ERS. You actually have funds there, and we always want to remain or increase that. TRS, the plan is to begin to fund that area. TRS and the self-funded health insurance reserve, I do not believe the board has taken action. I will in a future, probably the first April meeting, have that as an agenda item just so you can take action. So if we have the fund balance available, we could put funds in there and then you would be voting to say, yes, that's okay. You will see here the unemployment insurance. We have self-funded, which is zero. That's something newer within the last 2 years, but we definitely want to begin to fund that. Our tax certiorari, we have our designated amount, which is the 1.95 million, which you probably saw in a different slide that was presented tonight. And then you have unassigned, and that's just me assuming 4%. I always assume 4%, but as we get closer to year end and the books are closed, I'll have a better number for you. Okay, this is the revised and submitted tax cap calculation. So the capital tax levy, this exclusion number, changed slightly, which changed our allowable levy limit, which is $36,289,062. That means we can increase it, the levy limit, by 1.12 million, and that is a 3.21% increase. Now, I always like to make notation that it is submitted as this information. Nothing hinders things changing, but we submit and say this is what we're allowed to collect. We assume we will collect and move forward, but we do not, and nor did I submit anything that says we're exceeding the cap, just as a FYI. Okay, so this goes into a bit of what you were speaking about, Glenn, when you asked about the assessment in the town. So here you will see 1920 and 2021 school year, and then the estimate for 21-22. What I always like to say is, remember, the estimate is based on the current year's property assessment. And the reason why I say that is last year when this calculation was done, it was estimated that the tax rate would be, I think, $20.09 per thousand. And then when the the new assessment numbers were actually given, which we don't find that information out until July, late July, the actual tax rate was $19.78. So what happens is, as the overall assessed value of Grand Island is provided, and we know we have a tax growth rate because it's in the tax cap calculation, we know that this should be more favorable. My hope is that we come in at like 19.99, but I do have to give the information just based on what I know. So that's a 63-cent change, which is the 3.21% difference. And then you can see what this looks like on a tax bill for a non-star and for a star home. And those both come out to be 3.21%. And then usually at that August meeting, I think it's the first August meeting, if we can catch it, I provide an update so you can actually compare what we estimated to what it actually came in as. Are there any questions with that? Or Glenn, do you have any follow-up questions?
Yeah, I'm gonna follow up on that. I know that most of us, all of us live on the island, so we did receive recently a reassessed assessment, okay, which changes our assessed value, which, as I know, I understand, is that, you know, the whole assessed value of the island as a whole, I expect is gonna rise, okay? Which means that I expect that the tax rate, the levy will increase by whatever we can increase it by, okay, so, but the assessed value of properties on the island will increase, okay? Which I believe would lead us to have a tax rate that should be adjusted accordingly, correct?
Yes, yes. So that is a whole different formula, but Yes, there is a formula we follow. So once that assessed value is provided from the town to the school district, I speak directly to the, I call her the city assessor because I had her in my last district. But I work directly with her to get that information. I plug it into the calculation and the rate will adjust accordingly.
Which you would expect that, I think the town is suggesting based upon what I've received information-wise is that the assessed value of the properties on the island as a whole will increase, which will bring the tax rates down throughout the town. Okay, it'll reallocate them accordingly because that's what a reassessment does. And those who have been around for a while know that I argued for reassessment 10 years ago when we first did it. But I think that people should understand that just because their assessed value in the new, I'm making up numbers, increases by $50,000 doesn't mean that their school taxes are going to increase by 50,000 times. Do the math here, okay?
Correct.
Because everybody's assessed value is going to go up.
Yes.
Okay. It's a much more complicated issue than that, and I understand. My general thought is that there's many people who may not understand the specifics of it, and I know that the town is working to explain that to the residents, and I would just like to know that, or encourage people who don't understand it, who need to know more information about that the town is certainly willing to provide that information to people.
Okay. And the other thing to point out too is, and I don't know how many people actually know this, last year they were going to reassess, but due to COVID, they paused it. They just put everything on pause because I've had a couple discussions in reference to that, trying to understand what the impacts would be for the school district. So I'm not surprised that that's happening now. But as I know more information, I'll definitely share that out. But I can promise you there's nothing that's shared with us before budget vote. Any other questions on this? So this just gives what is coming in the upcoming weeks and months. April 12th is the possible budget adoption. The last date for budget adoption is April 20th. We have a meeting on March 22nd, as well as a May 10th budget public hearing. And then the budget vote is May 18th. And if there are any changes to the vote date or the way in which people can vote, myself or you or the both of us will definitely update the board as we know more. Any questions, comments?
Thank you, Ruby.
Thank you.
Hey, did we have any other items for information with the solar update? Did you go over that, Dr. Harris, or did you need to?
I have it. I'm just over talking as I shake my head. So I will make this brief for you. So we do have the check warrant for January that has been provided to the Board of Education. We have the budget transfers under 15,000 for your information, and I am just grabbing the solar component. So as you know, at prior board meetings, we have discussed solar, where we stood with solar and the board's approval to move forward. I just wanted to update the board to inform you of a letter of intent. I did speak with Hodgson Russ, who is our legal representation, in reference to that, making sure it was not binding. It didn't lock us into anything. It does not. What is happening right now is Nexus is working on the requirements, which are consent forms, by the utilities to get in the interconnections approved, which means they would submit documentation on our behalf. The only way that they can submit documentation on our behalf is either you have a agreement that's signed or you have a letter of intent, which really just lets them know that yes, we intend to work with them through this process, and they can move forward on our behalf. So that is really what is happening in that end. I am hoping to have an item or two for the board during the week in reference to this. Their legal team did not provide it yet. So as I have that, I'll forward it along. But we will be providing the letter of intent, and they will be moving the consent forms forward to get in the queue, as they say it. I know that we have some work to do. I know there are some things on the town end, but we're gathering everything to have discussion and bring information to the board. And I think that is it for me for now.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to special education then.
Okay, I have 2 action items, which would be our CPSC and our CSC program recommendations, please.
All right, so motion for services A and B, please.
Make a motion.
Second,
I'll second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 6-0. And that brings us to Dr. Harris again with a policy update.
Cheryl, next time I need your speaking to be a little bit longer so I can have a couple more seconds.
No, because I have to speak again, Ruby, too. So don't be short.
So last week we received our first draft of the policy book. If you have not received it and you are on the policy committee, there are copies in my office as well as Jude's office. It is rather large. We do have electronic copies as well, but I wanted to provide the board with an update in what we think as a committee is going to work very well for this process. So we reviewed the policies. They have like overarching areas or departments. Our goal is to push the policies that pertain to different departments and administrators out to those areas and then give them a due date. Clearly, if you're someone who has 3 policies under your area, my assumption is at the end of March, you can do that. If you have a lengthy number of policies, we will still push it out. My goal is to push it out this week, but we would give you a lengthier deadline date and then send out reminders as needed. Once those are pushed back to us on those due dates, the policy committee will get together to review them. I know one of the things that the board had referenced before is just feeling overwhelmed when large portions of the policy or the entire policy book is put before you for review. We think this will mitigate that some and allow you to see sections as we're seeing sections to kind of work through them. As you know, this is a lengthy process, but I think if we can keep with the schedule that we will move through it and also gather input from the appropriate areas of what is occurring and what needs to be changed and updated in the policy. Anything to add, other policy committee members, or does that sum it up well?
Sums it up very well.
Jay, how happy?
Thank you, Ruby.
Oh, 1 second, Jay.
Ruby, I
How
had to
happy
make
is
it to the
this?
gym today, so thank you.
Oh, Lordy.
Thank you. So we are at the superintendent's report.
All right, thank you. Just want to present my screen. All right. So this is just an update. Not too many changes to share with the board, but just we'll quickly go through these. You've seen this slide before. Since November, the district has had 98 positive cases of COVID-19, 10 at Sedway, 17 at Huth, 10 at Kegbine, 16 at the middle school, and 45 at the high school. Since January, we've had 27 employees who needed to be isolated and 27 other employees who needed to be quarantined. You know that I keep track of the week-to-week net change of individuals on the entire island, not just our school system, but the entire island. This means the week-to-week net change of people who have turned out to be positive with COVID-19 on Grand Island. You can see on this slide that in September, we started off with 2% net change, and that continued on with a little bump in October. At the end of October, early November, there was a big jump of 12%, then 14 and 23, and then as high as 29% on December 11th, and then a slow decline, and then a little jump up. This is what that week-to-week net change looks like over time from September to March 5th. The good news on this slide is that the week-to-week net change is leveling out, and it looks very similar as it did in September. So the past 2 weeks, we've seen only a 2% net change on the entire island, which is what we were looking at in September when we opened schools. This is the most recent data from Erie County Department of Health. The first line you see is our individuals who have been hospitalized in Erie County for COVID. You can see back in April, there were about 200, a little more than 250 individuals. And then in November and December, as high as 450. And the good news is that it's on a downward decline, and there are only 133 individuals currently hospitalized in Erie County. And that's what this slide shows. This kind of takes a peek from February 21st to March 6th with 213 people, February 21st, and now 133 people on March 6th. You can also see the decline in individuals needing intensive care going from 50 to 28, and individuals needing airway assist going from 38 to 23. And yet, on a day-to-day basis, there have been some tragic deaths ranging, most recently around 2 or 3 individuals a day. This is just an update on the individuals who have been vaccinated in Erie County with the vaccine, the first dose. There are 17% of Erie County residents who have been vaccinated with the first dose and 10% with the second dose. We're starting to see more and more opportunities for individuals in the 1A, 1B categories to be vaccinated, so that's exciting. I think they just opened up KeyBank Arena for some vaccinations for individuals that are eligible. By the way, the district is also trying to work and partner with a local hospital to see if we can do a little bit more in providing access to the vaccine for our employees. I shared with the board a letter that the Erie and Niagara school superintendents wrote on February 18th. We went over this the last time we were together. It was endorsed by all the Erie County and Niagara County superintendents, asking for a seat at the table to collaborate with the New York State Education Department in the event that the New York State Education Department or the New York State Department of Health sees the need to make any changes in the guidance they provided us last summer. You may have seen Dr. Zucker, the New York State Department of Health Commissioner, speak at a hearing, a budget hearing on February 25th. He made a statement that the Department of Health was currently examining the 6 feet distancing school policy, and that he said on the 25th that there may be an announcement, and there hasn't been. So just bringing the board up to date. Although Dr. Zucker indicated there may be an announcement, we have not heard any changes right now from the Department of Health. Oops, I'm going the wrong way. So I do want to turn it over to Cheryl. I did let the board know the last time we were together that we have started some internal committee work to do everything we can to bring more kids back during the 4 days of school. Our focus right now are children who have individualized education plans and are on a Regents track. And I'd like to ask Cheryl to give the board an update on the committee work that you're currently leading with our principals.
Okay. Thank you. I believe last time, Ashley, it was you that asked about the status of bringing special ed students back and if we could look at the numbers. After that meeting, I do want to thank all of the building principals and assistant principals. They did send me numbers of their A to L and M to Z special ed students. Dr. Graham and I looked at these numbers as well. And then this week, I have scheduled meetings with each individual principal to talk about every single classroom that has an integrated co-teach or at the middle school and high school level that is a self-contained classroom to see if we can potentially bring these students back 4 days a week. Currently, we do have some of our life skills classrooms that are back 4 days a week, along with some of our behavior classrooms too at the Kegavine and the middle school. So with that being said, I have my first meeting with Max and Felicia tomorrow. I have a meeting with the high school and with Denise Dunbar on Thursday, and then the middle school we will be meeting on Friday to actually look at how many students can we still make sure that we are 6 feet of distance, with plastic, with masks, to see if we can successfully meet those safety protocols. Also, we had an admin meeting on Friday. The principals will be working with Ruby in anticipation to make sure that we have the proper amount of plastic to make sure that we can still have those plastic barriers for our students if Zucker does not come on and say that we need to, that we can reduce that social distancing by 3 to 6 feet. From there, the principals and or I or both will be meeting with the special ed teachers, and if it's a co-teach environment, we'll also ask the gen ed teachers to be involved as well to talk about when do we do this, how do we need to arrange a classroom, what sort of plastic do we need, and what other supports do we need to make sure that all safety protocols are put into place while we bring these students back. The other portion of that would be talking with Ruby and Teresa to make sure that transportation is in place as well, because we will need to social distance on the buses and maintain that. Right now, 6 feet, hopefully it will be 3 to 6 in the coming days and weeks. So that's where we are, and I can update you also at our next board meeting. So I'm sure there's questions about that. It's exciting news that this is where we're progressing. So I'd like to open it up for any questions.
So just to recap, the goal is to first begin bringing back students Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday to classrooms who have individualized education plans and are on a Regents track. And that would start at the elementary schools first, and then we'll graduate to the middle and high schools to the extent possible. So I think that that's good news, and we're looking forward to more committee work to see where, how many students that entails and how effective our plans were to do that work.
Brian, I just to clarify, and I don't think we've already said this, but neither the state, Zucker, state ed, Erie County, anybody has changed any of the, provided any different guidance in terms of schools being open since, essentially last July, correct?
Yeah, there is no new news from New York State Education Department, New York State Department of Health, or even our local Erie County Department of Health Commissioner. So right now it's still 6 feet of physical distancing, which is the most difficult thing for us to figure out when we're trying to provide, in-person instruction here at school. And even the CDC has not made any changes yet. Okay, thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to our Board of Education report. If we could have a motion to approve item A. For the nomination. And a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 6-0, sorry. And that brings us to our hybrid virtual model. We were just talking a little bit about that. Did anyone have any comments or anything to discuss with the hybrid virtual model? Okay, so that brings us to the public comment session. General items not included in this agenda. We did not have anyone signed up for that. So committee of the whole items and information for the roundtable, beginning with Jay.
I'm all set, thanks.
Nicole.
Just glad to see the kids doing some more things with school and hopefully getting some more kids back into school. I'm glad they're enjoying their sports and all their other after-school activities that are starting to resume.
Glenn?
No.
Sue?
Our distinguished alumni committee met middle of last week. Brian, were you going to mention that in your end?
No, I didn't make a note, but if you want to do that, that'd be great. And if not,
Yeah, I'm just trying to bring up your email. We did nominate 2, and now I can't find it here real quick. Lois Gibbs, who graduated from Grand Island in, we don't have the graduate date, but she is involved in environmental causes and played a key point in the Love Canal when that was an issue back in the, the 80s. And we also picked Dr. Nikolic, who was an electrical engineer. So 2 great winners. It's always great to see how great and how far graduates of Grand Island High School can go with the education and the foundation we build at Grand Island. So it's a great testament of our community and our school district as well. So very exciting. We're looking for a way to be able to do presentations because we are not allowed to gather, but more information on that. 2 very interesting, successful people, exciting to see. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Robin?
I have nothing.
Cheryl?
I do. I wanted to congratulate our 3 teachers on their retirement, and I also wanted to congratulate my 2 fellow administrators, that I can actually see on my screen looking at me. I will miss both of you. I know that we do have the next 4 months together to navigate this new COVID world and perhaps bringing our students back, but thank you for always being part of the team. Thank you for making my job easier and always taking my phone calls no matter when they come. And I will miss you, and congratulations, you both deserve it.
Hey, Dr. Harris?
I have nothing.
Okay, I have nothing as well, except a couple dates. March 22nd is our Board of Education meeting work session. April 2nd to the 11th is spring recess. April 12th, Board of Education meeting, and our 3rd budget input session. With that, I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn our regular board meeting at 9:27.
Brian, did you have anything you wanted to mention?
Dr. Graham,
Well,
I need to skip you.
I do.
Sorry about that.
This will be quick. For Joy and Glenn and Ashley, our district facilities committee will be meeting virtually this Thursday evening at 6:30. And then one last note of congratulations to Ryan Mitchke and Savannah Lenz. Ryan is a tenor and Savannah is a soprano, and they were selected to be part of the National Association for Music Educators All Eastern Honor Ensembles. So it's a very prestigious honor, and perhaps we can have them at a future board meeting to recognize them. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, with that, if we could have a motion to adjourn the regular board meeting at 9:28 p.m., please.
I'll motion.
Any seconds?
I can second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? Motion carried 6-0. Thank you. Good night.